இருக்கீங்க? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Check, check. 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 Good morning. Volume. Check.
Check this.
Ladies and gentlemen, check, check, check. 1, 2, 3, check, check, check. Check. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's very nice meeting you this morning with another very exciting topic this morning. So this session, the first panel discussion for the day is entitled The Tamil Voice, Echo or Explosion. Is the world listening or are we talking to ourselves? This is indeed an interesting and intriguing proposition, and we shall explore it in depth. Tamil speaks with an ancient confidence, but does the world hear it as an echo within its own walls or as an explosion that reshapes global conversations? Introducing the panelists for today, we have Leticia Ebenes, a literary translator and lecturer at INALCO Paris. Leticia researches and I apologize, sorry. I am so sorry. We are starting from the start. This panel is entitled The Invisible Hand, Author's Voice or Translator's Choice. When we read a translated work, we believe we hear the author's voice, but between the original and the reader, there is an invisible hand, shaping rhythm, tone, and meaning. The panelists, introducing the panelists, we have Deepa Basti, a writer and literary translator working between Kannada and English, and the first Indian translator and the first translator of color to win the Man Booker Prize. Her award-winning translations and cultural criticism place her at the heart of this debate, asking how much of a text belongs to the author. Kavita Muralidharan is a bilingual journalist and translator with over 25 years in Tamil and English media, known for her translations of Perumal Murugan and A. Muthulingam. Her work sits at the intersection of reportage, lived reality, and literary translation. Shubhashri Desikan, a writer and a translator who moves fluidly between science, communication, and literary translation, with translations from Tamil to English and children's literature from English to Tamil. She brings a rare perspective on how clarity, context, and audience shape what ultimately reaches the reader. Kanishka Gupta, a leading literary agent representing major Indian and international authors, including International Booker and Booker Prize winners, positioned at the decisive point where manuscripts, translations, and publishers meet. He offers an insider's view of how global literary voices are created. Over to the moderator.
Thank you so much. Kavita, you in an interview with the Tamil writer Salma that you did for the Hindu, she mentioned how translators are not just doing a linguistic sort of a transfer of the text into English, and a lot of the translation is also about their sensibilities and how they interpret the text. So I would like to have a like open this discussion on this subject, that how much of the translators' interpretation and sensibilities come into the process of translating a text.
Thank you. I think it's very important. It's very important for a translator to be to understand the nuance, the culture, and that adds value to the text. I for one believe that translators should be invisible, but it's not. It's also, like Subhashri mentioned when we were talking, it's also about recreating without overstepping our boundaries. But it's also important to have that cultural sensibility, cultural understanding of nuance, to know what I'm actually translating, without which, that's why I always tell people, young people who are interested in translation, it's not just about knowing 2 languages. Anybody can know 2 languages, but not everybody can actually translate a text. That requires a completely different kind of sensibility, understanding, and an ability to converse with the author also. And it also requires an understanding with the author, and that plays a very important role. Like if I'm translating Perumal Murugan, there's something that I don't understand, I should be comfortable enough to ask him what it means. I should be able to hold many conversations about one single word, which I've done. So it's very important to not just understand the word, but the sentiment that goes behind the word, the cultural idea that goes behind the word, especially in a text like Perumal Murugan. So yeah, it's absolutely important to have that sensibility and understanding of the text.
Something to say on that.
So thank you for having me here. It's a great honor to be here among all of you. And I think translation is a way of interpolating between cultures, not just languages. AI can do a literal translation, but we need a human being to actually feel the text. And it's almost like an art. Like I have this analogy of a paper origami lotus, where the translator is making an origami lotus, looking at a real lotus, and if you bend the petals a little too much, it will look like a fried jalebi rather than as a. So the nuance and the tone is very important. That's what I want to say.
Deepa, you have anything to say on that?
I think invisibility is an illusion in some ways, because we might like to think that the translator is invisible, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. Because the same set of stories or the same novel, if I were to translate it and if another translator was to do it, it would read like 2 completely different texts, while of course keeping the main story around. So it baffles me that we are still kind of thinking about whether a translator should be invisible or not, because to me in many cases this idea of invisibility just feels like be it writers or publishers or the media or whoever it is talking about this invisibility, it's just almost like not wanting to give credit where it's due. Which is why I think this was Jennifer Croft who, when she started this Name the Translator campaign, and for people who might not know, I think until about 5 or 6 years ago, the name of the translator was mostly never on the front cover of the book. It was somewhere, if at all it was mentioned, it was somewhere in the inside pages or at the back of the book. And she made the statement that yes, the book comes from a certain original source text from whichever language, but every word that you are reading as a reader of the book in English is written by Jennifer Croft as the translator. So I think it's not as complicated a question to me as we like to think it is. Yeah. I think that's
So, you know, what's the most important guiding principle for the three of you as translators? Are you looking at the author's intention, or is there pressure on you from, you know, yourself and like the editors and publishing houses to keep the reader in mind? You know, so how do you like do the balancing act as translators?
In my latest work, that is translated, I translated Kira Janarayanan from Tamil to English, and the author was not alive when I finished the translation, so I couldn't really discuss much with him. I had to be very sensible about what he was trying to say and you know, preserve that as much as possible. So, sorry, what is your question?
So my question is about how do you find a sort of a middle ground between an author's intentions and the readership? And
Yes.
yeah, I mean, since you're talking about an author that you translated who was not alive, maybe we can talk about the challenges of translating text by a dead author and like a living author, and how the process of collaboration or the absence of collaboration with the author, you know, makes the whole process of translation a little different, you know.
So I had in mind the Indian reader who understands the culture to some extent, because you know, we are familiar with. So Kira predominantly wrote about the Karisal region, which is the black cotton soil region south of Tamil Nadu, and they have a very peculiar I shouldn't say, but a very specific dialect, and they use words differently from the way we use. Kudimagan, for instance, we say in Tamil, we use it to refer to farmers, but Kudimagan are citizens. But Kudimagan they use to refer to hairdressers, and they conduct the last rites if someone is. So these sort of things were very helpful, because Kira had made a dictionary of colloquial terms. He had made a whole dictionary of this local terminology, which was very helpful for me in translating this. And I had in mind the sort of reader who was familiar with this culture, but who cannot read in Tamil. So my footnotes and other were chosen particularly for that reader in mind. Yeah.
For me, I don't know. I basically think I'm translating something because I really wanted people to read and see for what it is. I mean, if I'm very moved by a text, by a piece of creativity, I really wanted someone else to read it. It could be a poem. I've translated some poems which have not been published because I thought it needs to go in another language. Of course, there is translation. In the process of translating, you always kind of lose something. But Perumal Murugan, for example, I don't think I can do full justice in translating Perumal Murugan because it's very difficult to translate a dialect. But for me, author comes to the forefront. I think author's voice needs to come across, and I wanted the reader to feel that she or he is reading Perumal Murugan, what Perumal Murugan could have written in English. That is the basic idea of my process.
I think the most that we can do as translators is to be as close to the original as possible and do it to the best of our abilities, whether it is in dealing with cultural aspects or dealing with dialects or very specific to some cultural nuances. Yes, there will be some things lost, but then I would prefer to look at what is gained by an English readership when we translate some text from, in my case, Kannada. So I think that becomes more important to me, and I think every text, I mean, when it comes to translations, I don't think there is like a one rule fits all sort of thing. Some might need footnotes, some might absolutely need to be glossed extensively, some might not do that. So I think we kind of, I wish there was like this one formula which worked in every situation. But unfortunately there's not. Every new text is like you're trying to learn how to most effectively translate from scratch. So which is both exciting and makes the job a lot more difficult. I wish there was just one formula that worked every time.
We'll be out of work if that was true.
I wanted to talk about like proper English and Indian English and improper English in the context of some translations that have become like big globally. So what is proper English? What is improper English? Who are you? What is the English that you are translating the text into? Deepa, you've had several conversations and debates about some of the word choices and some of the sentences that you've used in Heartlamp. So I just wanted your opinion on like proper versus improper English, because the English that a lot of Indians speak in is different from like global English.
I love this question. Firstly, I don't know who decided what is proper English. There is no such thing as proper English, if you ask me. For example, in India, yes, India itself has many different kinds of Englishes. The way we might speak English in South India is very different from the way it's spoken in Delhi and neighboring regions. Or even within Karnataka, in my case, the way it's spoken in Bangalore is very different from the way it's spoken elsewhere. And you take any country, I mean, obviously, I don't want to go into the social, political reasons why this has happened, but you go to the Caribbean region, the English spoken there is very different. And the way it is spoken and written, in fact, if anyone has read Claire Keegan's works, the way she constructs her sentences in English is extraordinary. And it's not proper English at all. The first time I read her work, it was sort of, it just sort of wonderfully messes with one's mind. So the idea that there are many Englishes has always been around, just like there are many versions of Tamil. The Tamil in Madras, in Chennai is very different from what's spoken in Madurai or wherever else. So for me, when I was translating the stories in Heartlamp, I didn't necessarily see why I had to translate into this mythical proper English. And I think, I like to think that it worked because this was immensely reflective of how we speak English in India. For example, I keep going back to this, there's a word in Kannada, ante, which I absolutely love. We sort of end each sentence with ante. It could mean, depending on the context, it could mean reported speech, or it could mean something like he said or she said or they said, a whole lot of different sense. And the closest that I can get to while translating it into English is it seems. And if you speak to Bangaloreans who have been born and raised, we use, I was not raised in Bangalore, but people there use it seems a lot. And one could argue that it's not proper English, but who is deciding what is this proper English? And for me, it was very important to locate both the translation and the original text in the region that it comes from. So,
Okay. Deepa, you made this very nice thing about the many Tamils.
yeah.
Just like there's proper English and improper English, there's also Tamil also has several dialects which are deprecated in favor of the mainstream language. So I'm not also going into the reasons, but for example, people say Kaludha for Kaludha. Kaludai is the correct literary, so-called correct literary thing, but even Keeladi, many people say Keeladi when instead of saying Keeladi. And this is the government has taken Keeladi as the formal word. So I think that's a very welcome sort of move. And so Kalida Pasanga, I wanted to give a flavor of this in the translation. So I've used the word Kalida and also given a footnote saying this is how it's pronounced by many people and how they differ in the Kovilpatti region, or many people say Kalida, things like that. So I've used two sets of footnotes. Can I go into that now?
Yeah, sure.
So the one set of footnotes is when I transliterate the word in the original word in the text and give a footnote which conveys the meaning of the word. And for those who want to go deeper and into the language aspect of it, I have given the meaning in the original, in the body of the text, and given the word that's used by the Karisil region as a footnote, so that you can actually learn how they speak and if you're interested in doing so. So that was one technique I followed throughout this book. It may not be consistent because I'm human and not a machine, but still it gives a flavor of the original, I thought.
Yeah. So I completely agree with both Deepa and Subhashri. I think it's very important to kind of stress that who's got the authority to decide what is proper English and what's not proper English. I think the very purpose of literature is to kind of defy hierarchies, to kind of rebel against hegemonies. And if we are going to kind of stick to these proper improper thing, we basically defy the purpose of literature. So I think it's best avoided. But in a very informal setup, I've had a conversation with a publisher, Kalachodakannan, long ago about translating Petai. I thought it was very interesting for me because Petai is Tamil Prabha's very important novel. I think the translation has come out just now. But when they decided to translate it to English, they were like wondering if they could kind of use a dialect that mirrors the culturally kind of closest to what Petai represented, in this case, North American dialect. I don't know if it worked or not, but I thought the idea was like, it was very kind of brave to even explore that idea. So, but I'm not sure if it worked or not eventually. But yeah, I think there have been attempts like this to find, closest way of translating a text in Tamil at least.
I wanted to talk about, the cultural nuances and also like the many dialects in both Tamil and Kannada. Deepa, you've mentioned many times and spoken about, the many Kannadas and how Banu's Kannada is very different from the Kannada that you speak in. Both of you have translated authors who write in different dialects. So how difficult is it to translate, these some of the words and some of the, phrases in the original? And do you think, like as translators, you're able to do justice to, the translation?
Hira was master of using the local language. He was known for, but actually this particular book, Gopalapuratha Makkal, is a ethnographic study. That's what, more than a novel of its kind. So he's used a lot of dialect and words that, as I mentioned earlier, we're not familiar with. And so my job was made easier by the fact that he had a whole dictionary of such terms. But even then there were things that I had to guess because he was not alive any longer. So I had to guess at what he meant. There were sentences which would, the most challenging thing was not so much the dialect, but as leaving things unsaid. Like there's a scene when there is a master of Silambam. It's an art form using poles, which it's a martial art kind of form. And there's a person who teaches this, Samika Nasari. So he gets this new pupil and he's saying, Iva ennatha and dot dot dot. That's how it is. That means, what is he? Full stop. That's it. He doesn't say what he wants to say fully. So I had to guess what, imagine the tone in which it was said and translate that. So those were the more difficult things about Kira's translation. But about dialect, I think, I'm sure, I mean, it was, like I said, it was made easier by the dictionary. And I also consulted a couple of people. There's a person called Pon Dhanasekaran, who's a writer and editor who comes from Kovilpatti region. There were, in one place, he uses 14 different words of, for different products of the palm tree. There's a person who just, one Sammuga Nadar, one person, he just depends on the palm tree for his livelihood. And these 14 different parts of the palm tree which are edible, I didn't even know they existed. And so in those things, I had to consult people from that region who knew about this. Okay. And yeah.
Kavita.
Yeah, for me, see, Perumal Murugan comes from Western Tamil Nadu, like Kongu region, and Muthulingam is a Sri Lankan Tamil writer. So yeah, it was challenging to translate. Perumal, in terms of reporting as a journalist, I've covered conflicts in Western Tamil Nadu. I've covered so, but you know, it's different. I think translation, being a translator, gives a more intimate experience of looking from inside. When I have to, because as a journalist, if I cover a conflict or something that's happening in Western Tamil Nadu, it will be, I'll take an outsider view. But as a translator, I'll have to step into that world and kind of, I can't be fully part of them, but I need to understand with a more, I need to have a more nuanced understanding as a translator about the culture, about the everyday lives of people there. So that was a challenge, yes. And it took me some time. Like there were times when I used to kind of, also because of the emotional weight of the text, I'll keep it away for like 1 week and then go back to it. Yeah, and luckily for me, Perumal Murugan, I could call him up and discuss about a term, about what he really wants to convey. I will understand the meaning of the term. I mean, Google always helps, but I needed to talk to him to understand what he really wants to bring in to that word in English. So yeah, conversations, I think, basically are very important between, I think, constant, continuous conversations through the process of translation is very important between the translator and the author to kind of make the text as perfect as possible, if not completely.
I think for me, with Banu Mushtaq's stories, it was kind of obvious the differences. More than the language itself, the cultural differences were something that I was very, very careful about, especially given how there is such a push towards stereotyping experiences of minorities in this country today. So I took a longer time probably doing the research and immersing myself in the socio-political milieu of the stories themselves. So I did that by listening to a lot of music by Sufi music. I mean, it's and I was watching some extremely addictive Urdu television serials because they followed similar stories as the stories were very similar. And then I was reading a lot of other writers who wrote about similar communities. So somewhere that helped for me to, I like to think of it as a method translation in some way. So I think that took a far longer time than the actual sitting out and typing out the translation itself. Because I think whether it is a difference in language or in the community or in the in whatever may be the differences, I think it's very important to be immersed in that in the world of the text. So somewhere, and Daisy Rockwell says this very beautifully, that there are these invisible force fields when one is translating. So language is not just the meaning of certain words, or language is our memories, it's our history, it's food, it's music, it's so much more than just just the meaning of the words. And I think as good translators, I think it's important to be aware of these things, and it's important to also translate these aspects of the language. And it's not just, if it was just meaning to meaning, sure, a machine can do it. But we are not looking at just the meaning of the words here. We're looking at something far deeper and far more. We're looking at the silences between words as well.
Deepa, when you were speaking, it just occurred to me that there's this film director called Bharati Raja who makes films about the Virudhunagar, that side of the Madurai side of villages and rural life, southern Tamil Nadu, where it's very close to the kind of land that Kira describes in his novel. So many times I had to remember I am an ardent Bharati Raja fan. I've watched all his films, and so very often when I'm reading the text, to understand the music behind the sentences, the dialogues and all that, I used to imagine a character from one of Bharati Raja's films saying it, and that would give me the thing. So I can very much relate to it when you say that you listen to the music and you were connecting to.
I think it just sort of puts you in the mood to translate, if not anything else.
Deepa, I would like you to talk about your experience publishing Heart Lamp and the subsequent International Booker win and the global acclaim and the accolades. Why do you think certain books travel globally and some books, or many of them, don't get like global exposure or like publishing opportunities? I mean, is there a sort of a secret sauce?
I wish there was, right? I think it's like one of these, viral reels. You don't really know why they are going viral. I mean, I'm not trying to say. I think there is a good amount of luck as well in how books are carried out. You never know what clicks. And as much as obviously as immensely grateful I am for the journey that Heart Lamp has had, I don't know if there is a formula that can be replicated like this. I mean, I'm sure all of us would want there to be a formula like that. So a lot more books would be published from our languages, not just nationally but also globally, and get the attention that major prizes like the International Booker can bring. But I don't know. I think one reason probably is because of how relatable the stories are, and that's both sad to think that. These are the stories in Heart Lamp, for example, are not restricted to just the Muslim community alone, unfortunately. You can strip away the names of the characters and maybe some cultural differences. And these are women's stories from all over the world. Women are oppressed by patriarchy, by religious fundamentalism in every community, in every part of the world. And that's that I think universality is very it's depressing, because it's easier to think that okay, this must be restricted to only one region or one community or one language or whatever, but it's not. I think we all know women who have faced these kind of issues because of patriarchy. So I think that's one of the reasons why the book could be read and understood and maybe enjoyed is not the word, but appreciated in other cultures as well.
I have a question, Deepa, when you were speaking. So when you were translating, you did not have an inkling that this book is going to travel so far. Can you compare your mindset when you were translating it and then how you felt when you won the...
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know if it's good practice to think of potential prizes or, this kind of global reach when one is translating. I don't know if that is a way one should go about translating something or writing something. from scratch ourselves. But obviously, I mean, one doesn't expect these things to happen, and obviously, it's a very welcome scenario to be.
Has it changed you after the, as a
Has it
translator?
changed me as a translator? I hope not. I mean, so I say this everywhere I speak, that I'm not a full-time translator. I've never intended to be one. I don't intend to be one. So I write my own, I mean, that's always been my priority. But I think I will be a bit, probably the only way I might see myself having changed is in being a little more careful in what I translate next. Because there is that pressure to translate everyone, and you know, so I have to be all the more careful. But I think I'm pretty good at switching off this whole noise from the outside world when I sit down to work. I did manage to translate one short story after the Booker win, and wildly different from any of these stories. So I think I'm okay with that.
Curating Heartland, because it's not a short story. So Heartland was not a book in Kannada, and then Deepa decided to select 12 of Banu's stories across 4 volumes. Across 4 volumes, six volumes, and then it got published in English. So just talk about your experience, you know, selecting those stories and how you made that one volume.
So these 12 stories were chosen from 6 different short story collections published between 1991 and 2023. And very honestly, the first criteria for me was to see if I enjoyed the stories myself. Because I'm sure, you know, both of you will agree, you have to firstly love a text to even think of translating it. Because you end up spending weeks, months, sometimes years with the words of another author in your head. So obviously you have to like these stories first. So the choices depended on a whole lot of these kind of, on these criteria. One was that I had to like the stories, and then I wanted to ensure that they presented a sort of like a career survey of Banu's writing over these 30-something years. And I was also keen on looking at stories which addressed women in their different stages of life, from a young girl to a young bride, to a daughter, to a new bride, to a mother-in-law, to an older woman. So the various stages of womanhood are sort of represented in this selection. And yeah, so that was it. It just, so I think that there are 2 stories from 2023, and the other older ones are from the previous collections that she had.
Do we have time for audience questions?
Thank you so much, panelists, for sharing your wisdom on translation and your lived-in experience as a translator. We have time for one quick question before we close the panel.
My name is Mini Krishnan. I work for the TNTB translations. 2 points, and they're not questions. One, Deepa, you said only 5 years ago translators' names started appearing. No. 1992, in Macmillan, I did the first lot of translations. I put translators' names on the cover. The royalties were divided equally between author and translator. I put pictures of I promoted translators very strongly. It's following Macmillan and what I did in Oxford that other publishers fell in line. Even till 2010, I know Penguin and Harper didn't put the names. Yes, that's one. 2, you talked about very correct English, and is it time to jettison it? You have to be careful. You see, you have to sail close to the shore when it comes to narration. What do you think of a sentence like, he held a sword made of wood in his hand? Can't you just say he held a wooden sword? So there is a difference between Babu English overcorrect English. I understand some editors are very tyrannical. So I'd like to just make that difference. Don't be so sniffy about English. It has its own framework. You have to respect that. You're talking about respecting language. You respect the language into which you're moving it also. Thank you.
Do we have no time left? One more question? Do we have time for a question?
We can take the questions offline.
Okay,
You can
yeah.
always find us there.
My question is for Banu. Which readership primarily, Deepa, yes. Which readership primarily guides your translational choices, the Indian reader or the international reader? And in selecting the text to translate, do you find any different? Which text to choose for the global audience or the Indian readers who are not familiar with the language originally it was written?
Thank you for that. For me, I would like to think of the ideal reader as someone who is interested in learning about the Kannada linguistic culture. It could be someone who's raised in the language but doesn't necessarily read Kannada, read or write Kannada themselves. Or it could be someone who wants to learn the language, you know, maybe a second or third generation American or a European or whoever who doesn't necessarily know the language. And your second question, I had to let go of a couple of stories because they would it would be easier for the global audience, but because it would be impossible for a non-Kannadiga who has no exposure to certain aspects of Kannada culture to understand these stories. For example, there was one beautiful story I was I was unhappy about having to let go of because it was based on a very popular folk story in Kannada. And pretty much everyone who reads Kannada would have an understanding of the story, which would make reading Banu's story a lot more relevant. But for someone who doesn't know that folk story at all, it would make absolutely no sense. It would at best be a mediocre story. So there were some aspects which I had to keep in mind. And it was not tailored for just a global audience. It was tailored for anyone who doesn't have a deeper understanding of Kannada culture itself. So I think, that's necessary to make some of these choices, but it was not only looking at a global audience.
Thank you. Thank you. I am Kuppuswamy, Tamil translator.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, audience. A very warm welcome to the Honorable Minister for School Education, Dr. Anbil Mahesh Poyamali, who has been revolutionizing school education with cutting-edge technology and infrastructure. We request you, sir, to kindly honor the panel members. Kanishka Gupta, the moderator, literary agent, representing major at authors, and thank you for moderating so gracefully, Kanishka. We have Deepa Basti, Kavita Muralidharan, Shubhashri Desikan. Thank you, sir. We request the panel members to kindly remain on stage for a group photograph. Audience members, kindly remain seated. Thank you. Thank you, sir. We will now begin the next panel discussion entitled, Does Harry Potter Need a Visa? I must tell you, I've been very eagerly waiting for this session. It intrigues me as a Potterhead, so I'm waiting to hear from the speakers. Stories travel across borders more easily than people, but not without resistance. This session asks a timely question. When ideas move across borders, are they treated as contraband or as knowledge? We have writer Imayam. Imayam is one of India's most contemporary Tamil writers, known for his uncompromising portrayal of caste, gender, and power in everyday life, with 10 novels, 9 short story collections, and a Sahitya Academy Award to his credit. His work reminds us how rooted local narratives confront global systems of control, translation, and visibility. Traswan Sharat is the founder of Silkworm Books, a leading English language publisher in Southeast Asia, with decades of leadership in international publishing and copyright advocacy, including roles with the International Publishers Association and ABPA. She brings deep insight into how ideas are governed, protected, and circulated across borders. Simon DeJockis is a veteran educator and publisher with over 35 years of experience in Francophone publishing as the head of Les 400 Coups and co-founder of Publishers Without Borders. His work foregrounds freedom to publish, linguistic diversity, and access. Zenete Viver is a Latvian literary translator working across Italian, English, and Latvian, with translations spanning children's literature and adult fiction published internationally. She represents a quiet and crucial role of translators who help ideas cross borders. Olivandan Gopalakrishnan is a publisher, author, and cultural organizer, and the CEO of Emerald Publishers, a 43-year-old publishing house based in Chennai, founder of Chennai Literary Festival and Chennai Book Club. He brings a publisher's perspective on how books navigate markets, regulation, leadership, and responsibility in a globalized world. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you and good morning, everyone. And it's quite interesting topic. Somebody, when I invited them in the morning, he asked me the question and said, "Are you going to discuss about Harry Potter today?" I said, "No." Then the topic says Harry Potter. No, it's only a symbol or metaphor because today, it's very, very important. Can someone control that music playing outside, please, or close this door? See, today it is very important. I remember some 10 years back when we got a book from a Chinese publisher to publish it in India. I have to be very careful because, being a book from China and also a book on economics, we have to scan word by word, sentence by sentence to ensure that it is not against our country. Otherwise, the publisher would be inside the jail. So this is very important, but we can't say that, yes, knowledge can go anywhere as it is. Now I wanted to start my question with my good friend Seneth, because a few years back, we have been meeting regularly at Frankfurt and Chennai, but one of my meetings at Frankfurt I couldn't forget, because when one of the book published by her and translated by her, when it was given to me, the question she asked, "Will you take this book to India? Will this book be acceptable there? Will they read it?" So it's not the question of visa. First, the issuance of passport itself was a big question there. I said, "What's wrong?" I wanted to ask you, start from you, Zenith. What do you think that knowledge can go anywhere as it feels, or there should be restricted, as I said earlier, when something's come from China or something from countries which is, always threatening to a nation like India? Can you use this?
Hello? Yes. I must say that also kind of being a translator is just my second job, because my first job is working as a literary agent. And we started building our catalog. Hello, yes. Yes, I must say that being translator is just my secondary job, because my first job is literary agent. And we started building our catalog from scratch, and we had to figure out what of our catalog might be topical and interesting abroad, and not necessarily the books that are important for our audience are important also outside. Of course, if we buy translated literature, you preferably choose some things that tells you a lot about the history of the place, about people of the place. But to make it work, I think you need both. You need something that is important and that regards your country, but also it has to be readable. It has to be perceivable abroad. And what made me ask that question was because I looked at Emerald's catalog, and so far he had been publishing literature that was quite far away from that. And my experience already told me that there are things that can be really far away, and it has to be set in a certain environment, and it has to be balanced. There has to be something new, but also it has to be perceivable, and that is what made me ask the question. But I am really pleased that from what I hear from Olivan, that still human story can travel, and that even it was far away from what he initially published, people do get that the book is about symbols, and that we have the same problems, and even if they are set in entirely different mentalities, and even if they are sometimes wild and hippie-ish, they can still be read also in other countries.
Thank you. We'll come back to you later. We want to go to our acclaimed writer of our country, Imayam. Sir, Vanakkam, sir. Let me first ask in English and then try and review. See, the literature can go from anywhere. There is no border. That is what this discussion, we probably would arrive in the end. That's what every writer would dream, that my book should go to any part of the world. But in reality, it may not be so, because of the culture, because of the country, their policies, so many things. We have to really accept that it is not that easy. இப்போ ஒரு கேள்வி என்ன அப்படின்னு சொன்னால், ஒரு இலக்கியம் அப்படிங்கிறது வந்து எந்த நாடுக்கு எங்கே வேணாலும் போகலாம். இதுதான் எல்லாருடைய எழுத்தாளருக்கும் விருப்பம். இமயம் அவர்களுடைய வந்து நாவல் அப்படின்னா எல்லா உலகத்தில் எல்லா ரீடருக்கும் போகணுங்கிறது தான் விருப்பம். அதனால் இமயம் கிட்ட கேட்டாலோ எந்த எழுத்தாளர்கிட்ட கேட்டாலும் எங்கே வேணாலும் போகலான்னு சொல்லலாம். ஆனால் இதில் சில நடைமுறைகள் சிக்கல் இருக்குது. நான் தொடக்கத்தில் சொல்லும்போது, நாங்கள் சைனாவிலேருந்து ஒரு புத்தகத்தை கொண்டு வரும்போது வரிக்கு வரி அதை பார்க்க வேண்டியிருக்கு. எங்கேயாவது நமக்கு எதிராக இருக்குதா அப்படின்னு சொல்லி. இன்றைக்கி எல்லா நாடுமே வந்து ஒரு அமைதியை குலைக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு நூலாக வரும்போது அதற்கு வந்து நிச்சயமாக வந்து தடை செய்ய தான் செய்வாங்க. உங்களுடைய பார்வையில் நீங்கள் என்ன நினைக்கிறீங்க? இப்போ இங்கே ஹாரி பாட்டருங்கிற அந்த புத்தகத்தை பற்றி நம்ம பேசலை. இட்ஸ் ஒன்லி ஹாரி பாட்டர் இஸ் வெல் நோன். த ஹாரி பாட்டர் இஸ் டிரான்ஸ்லேட்டட் இன் ஆல் த லாங்குவேஜஸ் அவைலபிள் இன் திஸ் வேர்ல்ட் லைக் பைபிள். பட் இட் இஸ் நாட் ஸோ வித் மெனி புக்ஸ், பிகாஸ் அதுக்கு நிறைய புத்தகங்கள் வந்து அந்த கலாச்சாரத்துக்கு வந்து விரோதமாக கூட இருக்கலாம். தட்ஸ் வாட் ஜெனத் ஆல்சோ செட். எனக்கு ஒரு புக்கு கொடுக்கறதுக்கு முன்னே யோசிச்சாங்க. உங்கள் பார்வையில் என்ன சொல்ல விரும்புகிறீங்க?
ஹலோ ஹலோ வணக்கம். நான் வந்து ஒரு ஷார்ட் ஃபிலிம் பார்த்தேன்.
வால்யூம் வேணுமா? கேட்கல.
பார்க்கும்போது இந்திய சோல்ஜர்ஸும் பாகிஸ்தான் ஜோன்ஸும் வந்து துப்பாக்கி சுட்டுக்கிட்டே இருக்காங்க. சுட்டுகிட்டே இருக்கும்போது கொஞ்சம் தள்ளி போய் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு பட்டர்ஃப்ளை வந்து அப்படியே இந்த பக்கம் விளையாண்டுகிட்டே இருக்கு. எறும்பு இந்த பக்கம் விளையாண்டுக்கிட்டே இருக்கு. சில பறவைகள் பறந்துக்கிட்டே இருக்கு. இது என்னன்னா மனிதர்களுக்கு தான் அந்த எல்லை கோடுகள் இருக்கு. மனிதர்களுக்கு மட்டும்தான் அந்த நிறவெறி இருக்கு, அல்லது மனிதர்களுக்கு மட்டும்தான் அந்த ஜாதி வரி இருக்கு, நிலம் சார்ந்த அடையாளங்கள் இருக்கு. ஆனால் அறிவுக்கு தடை இல்லை. அறிவு உலகத்திற்கானது, தொழில்நுட்பம் உலகத்திற்கானது, மருத்துவம் உலகத்திற்கானது, கலாச்சாரம் உலகத்திற்கானது, பண்பாடு உலகத்திற்கானது, சிரிப்பு மனிதர்களுக்கானது, சந்தோஷம் மனிதர்களுக்கானது. நாம் அதிகாரத்தின் வழியாக நாம் சில எல்லைகளை வகுக்கிறோம். அந்த எல்லைகள் மனிதர்களை கூறு போடுகிறது, மனிதர்களை பிரித்து வைக்கிறது. ஆனால் அன்பும் ஒருபோதும் யாரையும் பிரித்து வைக்காது. இலக்கியத்திற்கு எத்தனை தடைகள் இருந்தாலும், எத்தனை எடிட்டிங் இருந்தாலும், எத்தனை தடைகளோடு வந்தாலும் கூட அது அன்பை பேசுகிற ஒரு ஆயுதமாக இருக்கிற காரணத்தினால் எல்லா தடைகளையும் தாண்டி இலக்கியம் உலகளாவிய ஒரு அன்பை அது உருவாக்கும். அதுகளுக்கு ஏற்படுத்தும் தடை தற்காலிகமானது தான், அது நிரந்தரமான தடை ஒருபோதும் இருக்காது.
As expected, a writer, is vociferously said that nothing can stop a literature from going across the borders. True. Today, you can physically block a book, ban, but within few minutes the book will be available online, digitally, which you cannot stop today. As he rightly said, yes, we only wish for a world where the literature flows easily across the borders. Now, Simon, I wanted to ask you a question because, your books now, even your French books, goes to different countries, right? Not just confined to France, Canada, Cuba, so many places. Have you ever, seen such kind of measures that it cannot be brought into this country, or this should not be published, which is against this culture?
Speaking? Hello? Working? Thank you for your question. Thank you for being here. I just want to know that if Harry Potter ever came to my country, I would hope that the immigration officer would stop him if he had a wand and a broom. But that being said, more seriously, going back to your question, the whole notion of passports or visas is way beyond the whole notion of countries. I think even within a country, I just have to think about my southern neighbors, the USA, where even within their own territory, they've integrated visas and passports for books, where school boards or specific states are saying that book doesn't go by. And true enough that we can, as was mentioned, rely on technology to access these books digitally. But morally speaking, we're talking about changing the mindset of developing ideas and moving forward as a society. And when I speak of society, I'm not talking about my Canadian, French-Canadian society. I'm talking about world, humanity. Humanity, I think, is losing it because we're blocking books. And blocking books means blocking ideas, blocking ways of thinking. And I think humanity's problem right now is that we've decided that we don't want to hear the other person's opinion, the other person's point of view. And going back to your question, my books, children's books, have access to multiple places. And yes, there are places where what my books say are considered dangerous for the children of those nations. And it's interesting to think that in my nation it's not dangerous, but in somebody else's. And I'm pretty sure that we're all human beings, and we all have the same notion of what is freedom. And yet there is a cultural sense that something will fall apart. And I think in this world, what we've forgotten to do is take risks, listen to the person in front of us, accept that opinions can be different. And if that was started, wherever you are in the world, if you started tolerating other opinions, then you'd say, I need different books. I was talking to some of the volunteers a little earlier on, and I was saying that my strength in my knowledge and my competences and my beliefs comes from the fact that I understand yours better. Not because I put them away, but I understand you better, and from that I can make a judgment on who I am. So, yeah, some of my books in French are not translated in some countries. Many of my books are translated and have the visa and the passport stamp to get into many languages, including here. But all books should be allowed to go through. I think we should all allow books to go through so that we can understand what the other one thinks. It doesn't mean that we have to be slaves or servants to anything, but understanding comes through books. And books is probably the best way to understand and to learn. After word of mouth, books is the best way to learn. So.
Thank you, Simon. You rightly said. That's why they say it's a world understanding and peace. Unless you understand that the other person or the world, there cannot be a peace. Very beautifully said. Come to trust. We have another problem. You have been dealing with copyright and other things in the world. So, how do you, see this in this changing world when anybody can access to anything, and the violation of copyrights taking place rapidly? There is no question of passport or visa. There are a lot of illegal immigrants here. So how would you handle that?
Well, thank you for the questions. And I must say that I'm come from different part of the world. You know, we are 3 continents. And sitting here, and I agree with you all 3, but in practical, you see, what my colleagues here have been saying, it's idealistically, yes, ideas should travel. There shouldn't be any restriction. But realistically, practically, it's not copyright, it's logistic. Logistic is silent killer of every publishers and book distributor. I get my book to Cambodia or to Indonesia, it's more expensive than more expensive than I ship my book to America. And everything, since I've been here, India shares so much like Southeast Asian. You know, in the four southern states, you have 4 languages, you have hundreds of sub-languages. You're talking about translation this morning. In ASEAN, we face the same thing. And everything has to go through English. English is a gatekeeper. I have nothing against English, nothing at all. I have nothing against anything. But, I want Thai to direct to Tamil and Tamil direct to Thai, Tamil to, that kind of thing. Bahasa, Indonesia to Canada, etc. But there's an obstacle. An obstacle is not, I know Simon have been rallying about taxation, but it's not tax. It's the power. It's political power that blocking us too. And then, yes, copyright came. Everything came, and even silence. Silence is worse than visa. So, I'm not political activist. I'm just a publisher. Okay, so don't get me wrong. but I feel like, okay, we can talk ideas. It's our dream that there's no borderlines. But realistically, there's border everywhere. Tell us, who didn't struggle with apply for India visa, with all this online visa? We're all struggling. And it should be simpler, but that's another area that we shouldn't bring it in. But what we should do is that logistic, printing, silent, censorship, cultural, it's deeper than that. It's hard to be discussed in half an hour or even half a year. But we need to read to understand each other better. In Southeast Asia, we know about what's happening with Donald Trump and White House more than what I know about politics in Indonesia or in Manila. That's helpless. And we are supposed to be an economic union. We pay withholding tax really high among ASEAN countries. And with Thailand, we learn a lot, you know, our India, you see, we're supposed to be Southeast Asia, we are, you know, this Indochina, whatever. We learn from the two civilizations from India and China. The culture in Thailand, we learned it from Tamil, you know, from the southern root. But we hardly really know what is Tamil Nadu is like. And for Indian, they only know Bangkok and Pattaya for us, you know, that is ridiculous.
Thank you. Thank you that, now the question to you. I don't think we will have one more round because they've given us only 15 minutes to talk. Last hour questions. I just ask you last question because already she started looking at her watch. See, yes, idealistically, Zenat, to you. Idealistically, yes, it is right that the knowledge should go from here to there, flow easily, all that you say. But time immemorial, when the civilization started in this human history, when the countries, nations all formed, it was not so easy for the rulers to, keep the border intact. That is why they kept the people always illiterates in many places. When countries conquered, the first thing they attacked was libraries. They burned down libraries even 2,000, 3,000 years back to even recently in Sri Lanka. So from their perspective, how would you look at this? From the ruler's perspective, suppose you are, today you are a translator, literary agent, you talk. So from the ruler's perspective.
I really agree with Strasman. We have to be realistic. And literature can travel, but you can't impose foreign readers to read something that is extremely important to you, but not relevant outside. So you have to tell about your country, about your problems, about your people, but you have to deliver your idea, and this is where the problem starts. It has to be delivered in a way that people can relate to, and there's an extent that they can hold their attention. So I think, of course, it's also in the skill of a writer, of a translator to do that, but the content also has to be appealing in your area. Otherwise, you just can't people to force something, to force onto them something that is not relevant to them, because we are living in a very busy world, and everyone is probably taken by their own problems. So you have to have the sensitivity, what could travel, what should travel, and probably what you should just read at home.
Thank you. That's a brilliant answer, because the writer has the responsibilities. For example, in 19th century, Dostoevsky or Leo Tolstoy, if they had crossed even 1 millimeter of the line, their own country would have hanged them. But they escaped because the literature, as you said rightly, the writer has the responsibility of giving the taste and also conduct it so subtly. Imayam sir, vanakkam. இப்போ இவங்க நான் என்ன கேள்வி கேட்டேன்னா, ஒரு நாடு ஒழுங்கு கொண்டு வர வேண்டும் அப்படின்னு சொன்னால் சில விதிகள் இருக்குது. இப்போ நம்ம எழுத்தாளர் பதிப்பாளருங்கிறதால நம்ம சொல்லலாம் எல்லாம் போகலாம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி. பட் நீங்கள் அந்த சைடில் உட்காரும்போது ஒரு ஆட்சியாளராக இருக்கும்போது அந்த நாடை கட்டுக்கோப்பாக வைக்கிறதுங்கிறது அவ்வளோ எளிதான ஒரு விஷயம் இல்லை. அந்த ஏன்னா ஒரு சில கருத்துகள் மொத்தத்தையும் நஞ்சாக்கி மக்களை குழப்பமாக்கிறோம் அப்படின்றது என்னுடைய கேள்வி. அதுக்கு இவங்க ஜெனத் சொல்லும்போது என்ன சொன்னாங்கன்னா, எழுத்தாளருக்கு அந்த பொறுப்பு இருக்குது, எழுத்தாளர் அக்கறையோடு சொல்லணும்னு சொல்லும்போது நான் தாஸ்தவாஸ்கியும் லியோ டால்ஸ்டாய் சொன்னேன். கொஞ்சம் ஏமாந்துருந்தாலும் ரெண்டு பேரும் திரும்பவும் கொண்டு போய் தூக்கில் போட்டிருக்கிறதுக்கு வாய்ப்பு இருக்குது. நீங்கள் உங்களுடைய பதில் என்ன?
பொதுவாக ஒரு சமூகத்தில் வாழக்கூடிய எல்லாரை விடவும் மிகவும் பொறுப்பானவன் எழுத்தாளன் தான். நம்முடைய இலக்கியங்கள் எல்லாமே மன்னர்களுக்கு அறிவுரை சொல்லக்கூடிய எழுத்தாக இருந்திருக்கிறது. ஏன் ஒரு சமூகம் மற்ற எல்லாரை விடவும் ஒரு எழுத்தாளனை கொண்டாடுகிறது என்றால் அவன் மட்டும்தான் இந்த சமூகத்தை பற்றி கவலைப்படுகிறவனாக, நிர்வாகத்தை பற்றி கவலைப்படுகிறவனாக, நிர்வாகத்துக்கு எதிராக குரல் கொடுக்கிறவனாக இருக்கிறான். அதனால தான் எழுத்தாளனுடைய குரல் முதல் குரலாக மதிக்கப்படுகிறது. எழுத்தாளனுடைய எழுத்து முதல் சட்டமாக, ஆயுதமாக பயன்படுத்தப்படுகிறது. எங்கெல்லாம் மனித உரிமைகள் இழக்கப்படுகிறதோ அங்கெல்லாம் முதல் குரலாக எழுத்தாளனுடைய குரலே ஓங்கி ஒலிக்கிறது. அதனால தான் நீங்கள் எந்த கட்டுப்பாடுக்கும் அல்லாமல், எந்த கொள்கைக்கும் கட்டுப்படாமல், எல்லா விதமான சமூக அன்பாக இருப்பதற்காக தன்னுடைய எழுத்தை ஒரு ஆயுதமாக பயன்படுத்துகிறான் எழுத்தாளன். ஆகவே அரசு தவறு செய்யும்போது அதை சுட்டி காட்டுகிறவன் முதல் ஆளாக எழுத்தாளன் இருக்கிறான். சமூகத்தில் எங்கே பள்ளம் இருக்கிறதோ அதை சுட்டி காட்டுகிறவன் எழுத்தாளனாக இருக்கிறான். ஒரு சமூகத்தில் எங்கே மனிதர்கள் பாதிக்கப்படுகிறார்களோ அவர்களுக்காக முதல் குரல் கொடுப்பவன் எழுத்தாளனாக இருக்கிறான். ஆகவே தற்காலிகமாக இந்த அரசு பதவிகள் எல்லாம் தற்காலிகமானது, ஆட்சியாளர்கள் தற்காலிகமானவர்கள், இலக்கியம் நிரந்தரமானது, இலக்கியம் சொல்கிற அன்பு நிரந்தரமானது. ஆகவே இந்த ஒரு உதாரணமாக நேற்று ஒரு நண்பரோடு பேசிக் கொண்டிருந்தேன். இப்போது ட்ரம்ப் இருக்கலாம், ஏற்கனவே புஷ் இருந்திருக்கலாம், அல்லது அமெரிக்காவில், ஆப்பிரிக்காவில், ரஷ்யாவில் எத்தனையோ அரசியல் தலைவர்கள் இருந்தாங்க. அவங்க எல்லாருமே காணாமல் போயிட்டாங்க. 500 ஆண்டு காலம் எழுத்தாளர்கள் மட்டும்தான் திரும்ப திரும்ப நினைவு கொள்ளப்படுகிறார்கள். இலக்கியம் மட்டும்தான் திரும்ப திரும்ப நினைவு கொள்ளப்படுகிறது. நம்முடைய இந்திய மரபுலையும் சரி, தமிழ் மரபுல நீங்கள் 3500 ஆண்டுக்கு முன்பாக யாரோ ஒருத்தர் எழுதி வைத்த ஒரு வரி இங்கே இருக்கிறது. எம்எல்ஏக்கள் காணாமல் போய்விட்டார்கள், எம்பிக்கள் காணாமல் போய்விட்டார்கள், மந்திரிகள் காணாமல் போய்விட்டார்கள், நம்முடைய பிரதமரும் காணாமல் போவார். ஆனால் இலக்கியம் காணாமல் போகாது. இலக்கியம் ஏன் காணாமல் போகாது என்றால் அது அன்பை பேசுகிறது, சமூக நீதியை பேசுகிறது, சமூக கட்டமைப்பு பேசுகிறது, சமூக அறத்தை பேசுகிறது. ஆகவே எத்தனை அரசியல்கள் இருந்தாலும் இலக்கியம் இருக்கும், மொழி இருக்கும், அது அன்பை பேசுவதால்.
You know what you were saying about this is the writers have the responsibility, and the rulers may come and rulers may go, but the writers, even after centuries, they remain. You know, what is your take on that? Because you are children publishers. Do you agree that because children are very, very important for the future, how would you, be responsible?
I totally agree that we have seen many rulers in our countries. They've come and they've gone, different opinions, sometimes to the right, sometimes to the left. I think as publishers, as authors, as translators, as book sellers, as book fair owners or organizers, we have to have the responsibility of pursuing beyond the rulers and remind ourselves that we have a very important responsibility, and that is to make the children that will be the leaders of tomorrow better leaders than the ones we've had in the past. And books can be an important part of that solution. So, take that into consideration when you are writing a book as an author, when you're translating a book, when you're proposing a book, that these are great tools to break down those visas and those passports.
Thank you. Would you like to comment on that, or final word?
Right. I agree with you all and no need to repeat. But I want to tell you one of the Malay story, which I really like. There's one writer who had been writing all his life, very popular, and he died and he confronted with God of death. And the God of death said, what was your occupation? He said, I was a writer. He looked at the book and I said, okay, go to hell for thousands, go to hell, And the writer said, wait, I hadn't done anything wrong in my life, He said, but what did you write about? And he was quiet. You poison people. And they said, how long my sentence is? He said, until the last book is demolished. Your last book is demolished. So we all have responsibility as whatever. And mostly as a member of the society. Every children is your children. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final take-home message is, yes, the knowledge should flow freely across the borders, but the writers should have their own boundaries, and they should know that they have to be responsible. We thank the organizers for giving us this opportunity to share our thoughts, and particularly all the panelists who have come here and share their values. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know Trasun mentioned that she is not a political activist, but I think all authors, all publishers are socio-political activists who stand for ideas.
Because book is power.
Yes. And Imam Ayya also says books are love. And as long as we speak love, we are not going to be stopped. So thank you very much for that enlightening panel. May I request Claudia Kaiser to kindly honor the panelists. Claudia Kaiser, Vice President, Business Development, Frankfurt Book Fair. Writer Imam. Zenit, Simon, Traswin, and Olivannan. Panel members, kindly stay on stage for a group photograph. Thank you. We did not have time for questions this session, but you can always catch the speakers offline. You can speak to them. We will now move to the main auditorium. The next panel discussion will start at 11:45. You can come back here. We'll now move to the main auditorium for the Honorable Chief Minister's program. Thank you.